Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today we will talk about the best way to use CareerPathUp to crack your business analyst, product manager, or project manager interviews. But before we start, please like the video and subscribe to the channel to provide us the support we need. Now, there are a lot of users who have used it successfully, but if you are new to the platform and not sure or does not know the right way, this video will help you. Now, I'm using the free plan here, but even with free, there are a lot of questions here. So I'm not going to cover all of them, but I will show you a few in order to illustrate its functionality. But before we talk about the tool itself, let's talk about the challenges around any interview. Primarily, there are two types of interview questions related to the fundamentals of the domain. So somebody may ask you questions which are related to fundamentals of project management or Scrum, or questions related to the past behavior. Something like, what will you do if something happens, if you interact with a difficult customer or a stakeholder? Point to be noted here is that even the behavior related questions are mapped with fundamentals. So if you appear in a project management interview, they might ask questions related to fundamentals. It could be like type of risk involved in a project, or how do you manage risk, or tell me about the time you encountered risk in a project. Now, even to answer how do you manage risk, you need to know about the project risk management, the fundamentals, the types of risk. And that's why people who know how to use CareerPathUp, they do so well, because it covers both aspects. Remember, in an interview or any human interaction, there are no multiple choice questions, but these questions are required or rather used by the platform to help you learn. So if somebody asks you how do you manage risk and you don't know anything about project risk management, you cannot answer that question. Every professional is at a different stage. And on the top of that, even experienced professionals struggle to answer some of these questions in interviews. Reason is they might be doing that on a daily basis in their job, but there is no formal label there. Your boss may not use PMI standards or agile standards, terminologies to talk about these things. So you might be working with a focus group if you are a business analyst or a product manager, or you might be using some standard framework to manage risk in your project. But still, nobody is going to refer to some specific standard terminology. And whenever these questions appear in any interview, most of us are taken back. It's like we have never done this. And even when you try to think and come up with something, it doesn't sound convincing, isn't it? Because it sounds like manufactured, which is primarily because of two reasons. A, you haven't practiced enough. B, you were never trained or worked in a way where you will use that information to crack some interview. An interview is a very time-boxed event, 30 minutes, 60 minutes interaction, where you need to leave a lasting impression in order to crack it, which essentially means that you have to use all these standard terminologies, jargons, keywords to communicate, to articulate your value and inform the other party that you are aware of these things, you have been doing these things. For example, in real world, most of the prioritization happens based on business value, impact, and feasibility of the feature. But your company may not necessarily use specific terms like RISE, KNO, etc., especially existing large enterprises. Of course, in a startup, they go by the book, so a lot of founders will use these terms. So in that case, you need to know about these terms, which essentially means that you should be very thorough with the fundamentals if you are planning to work for a startup. And if you have worked with a startup, then you will be comfortable with these terminologies. But if you are working with a large enterprise, then chances are you have a table where you have mapped every feature in terms of business value, impact, and feasibility, and not necessarily in terms of RISE, KNO, etc. Are you getting my point? That large enterprises have a very legacy way of working. You are doing everything, but not necessarily following some standard framework. But it's an entirely different picture when you apply to these organizations, whether these are startups or large enterprises, because in interviews, you need to go by the book. You need to answer question, and not just answer, but answer in a way where it communicate formal understanding of the framework. For example, if you apply to Scrum or project manager role, Scrum master or project manager role, a lot of these companies will specifically mention in the job description that you should know Six Sigma, you should know PMI or have PMP certification or CSM certification. And they will ask questions which are around these specific terminologies. And this is where I believe CareerPathUp really shines, because It provides you that framework through a combination of questions which are multiple choice and behavior based situational questions. So it's like combining the formal structure and fundamentals along with your experience. So you use multiple choice questions to get your terminologies and concepts right, and then use situational or behavior based questions to practice. So when you do that and you keep doing it multiple times, then you are in a position where you can ace any interview you want. This approach prepares you to handle any question. If you watch some Scrum Master, Project Manager or Product Manager videos and use them to prepare for next interviews, chances are you will fail. That's the truth. Reason is simple. Let's say you have watched 10, 20 or 50 videos on product design. They are talking about something like design a fridge for kids, design a park, so on and so forth, many different things. Now these questions may come up directly. I don't think most of them will come, but let's say there are a few questions which are relevant and may come up in a professional interview. But if you haven't practiced in a structured way, then you will start fumbling as soon as you get a question which is not similar to what you have heard. So if you have practiced with something like design a fridge for kids, if you get that exact question, then you might do well. But if somebody asks you a different question, then you might struggle. And heard is a keyword here, or watched is a keyword here. So if you haven't watched a video, if you haven't heard a video or podcast or something or read a book, then you will struggle because you don't have proper framework. You haven't trained your brain. Remember, it's all about training your brain to crack the interview. It's not about your actual knowledge. You may be a very knowledgeable person. You might be an expert in that field, but you might still fail the interviews if you haven't practiced and prepared. And it happens a lot. If interviewer asks you something which you have not encountered before, you will never be able to answer that question with confidence. There won't be any conviction. The reason is your brain doesn't have that information in a way which is required to handle various combinations of concepts and then questions. So it's like you try to cook something in the interview itself, and that will reflect in the response. For example, you might have watched hundreds of videos on product design. But if you get a question, something like, come up with a roadmap for a payment feature. Now, it's not asking you to design a payment feature. It is asking for a roadmap. You can never answer that question with ease. Even if you manage to answer something, chances are you will fail the interview because you might have practiced for one particular aspect of the question. For example, design a payment feature. So if you have practiced designing a payment feature, then you can come up with that. But then extending that answer or modifying that answer to build a roadmap, you might struggle because this is where you need to understand how product requirements are written. This is where you need to understand the prioritization. This is where you need to have a proper end-to-end view. So that's why tools like CareerPathUp add so much value to these people who are using it to really crack the interviews. I mean, I have seen people with multiple offers because they have used it so many times. What happens that they know this is the product requirement. There might be a multiple answer or objective type question on that. Then they might have answered something on road mapping or product design. And when something comes in the interview, even if they have never encountered that type of question before, their brain is quickly able to come up with a response where they can put things together. It's like pieces of puzzle. So they have all those pieces. They can put together it and complete and deliver that picture. So remember, practice is the key. If you are already looking for the job, it doesn't mean that you should wait for the interview call to start using the tool or start practicing. In fact, this is one of the biggest factor, one of the reasons why people fail, because people are looking for job change, but they are not preparing for interviews. It's like a tunnel. You know you will come out at the other end of it. It's just that you don't know when. So if you are already applying for jobs, you don't know when you will get the interview call. But when you get that call and HR asks you to appear in the interview in a week, you simply won't have enough time to prepare. And I have seen this happening with a lot of people. They are not getting any call for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. They have been trying, but they are not preparing for the interview. And then one fine day, they get a call, but then they fail to crack it. Remember, especially in this market, interviews are not coming easy. You might apply at hundreds of places and then you might get one interview call or 2 interview calls. Unless you are thoroughly prepared, you will not be able to fully exploit that opportunity. Okay, so make sure that if you are out there looking for a job change, you should keep practicing at least 30, 60 minutes every day. Go to the portal, use that platform, maybe 5 questions, 2 questions, 10 questions, whatever you can do. But always do it. Do it on a daily basis. It's like a muscle. Remember, your brain is like a muscle. You have to train it if you want to use it. Okay? And if you have any questions or need any help with your preparation, leave your comment or connect with me through LinkedIn. For now, I'll just show you some of the questions to highlight how you can use these multiple choice plus behavior or situation based questions to fully practice or rather train yourself and prepare yourself for these interviews. So at the moment, you can use this platform to prepare for project management, Scrum Master and Program Manager role, Business Analyst role, and Product Manager role. So for this video, I'm just going to use Business Analyst. But the approach will largely be same. Doesn't matter whether you are preparing for program manager or product manager. So if you see, this is essentially a multiple or rather objective type question. What roles do stakeholders play in requirement validation? Now, chances are you won't get this question with this language in your interview. But the kind of questions which you might expect in a business analyst interviews would be something like, how do you validate requirements? If you are a business analyst, how do you ensure the quality of the requirements? These kind of questions. How do you know that your requirements are right? If you say that I'm doing it by using the acceptance criteria, then you are wrong. The primary way a business analyst validate their requirement is by reviewing it with the stakeholders. And if you have already seen this question, practice this question, then the language doesn't matter. You already know the concept. So you can simply say, well, if somebody is asking how do you validate requirements, you would say, I create the draft, I work on the requirement, write the user story, then I have reviews with the stakeholders, I walk it through with them, and based on their feedback, I have updated, I make changes to the requirements, user stories, and that's how I validate and confirm the correctness of my requirement. Okay, that's how you essentially put the various pieces of the puzzle together. So what is the role of a consultant? They provide expert advice and recommendations. Now, if you get a question that if you are working on a project and you don't know about the subject matter, how do you handle that situation? For example, you might be working on a project for machine learning or authentication, IAM, some specific domain, insurance, banking, where you don't know about, or rather you don't know much about the domain. You might have some information. How do you handle those projects? In that case, your answer would be something like, I work with the consultants, SMEs. So this is a very simple looking question. But a naive mind will think that it's nothing, especially experienced people like me. I mean, I know even I will ignore assuming that this is not an important question. But this assumption is a highly wrong assumption, invalidated assumption. I would say you must know how to handle the situation when you won't have the expertise on a project or a domain, because there are so many things out there in technology. Nobody can claim that they know everything. So if you are a business analyst working in digital space, you cannot claim that you know everything. And the moment you claim, your interviewer knows that you are not the right person because you are just lying or bluffing. Okay? Now, this is again a very basic question dealing with the fundamentals, because if you are appearing in these interviews and if somebody asks you, and these usually comes as a trick questions. So let's say you are appearing for a business analyst or product owner, IT product owner interviews. Then somebody will ask you, how do you manage project timelines? Now, a lot of people, the mistake they do is that they try to answer that question in a way as if they actually manage the project timelines. And it happens because there are a lot of project managers or Scrum Masters or engineers, developers who are trying to switch to business analyst or IT product owner roles. Now, they don't understand it fully. So what they do, instead of saying that I'm a product owner, I primarily gather requirements, prioritize requirements, work with the stakeholder to manage the requirements. Their simple answer should be, I don't manage project timelines. I don't develop marketing strategies or conduct user testing or anything they might ask. They should simply say the truth instead of trying to answer something which is beyond their domain, which is not expected out of a regular business analyst or a product owner. Now, if a company is really looking for someone who will manage the project timelines, In that case, your company will always make it clear. But as far as the standard response is concerned, you should always say that I'm not involved in the managing the project timeline. So remember, where you have to be very careful with these trick questions. They will try to sell it in a way where it's like you will get an impression that it's good if you can answer that question. But the real intent behind these questions is that they are trying to see if you have really worked as a product owner or a business analyst or not. Because anybody can write anything in interview or rather resume and get that interview call, right? So they need to make sure that you are the right person. So you should be very careful with the fundamentals of any domain, any field you are applying for. For example, if you are applying for a Scrum Master and somebody say, how do you write a user story? And then you start answering that question. Then they will know that maybe you haven't done any work as a Scrum Master and you are probably a BA trying to switch to a Scrum Master, or you are coming from a company or a background where it may not be very relevant to what they are doing, because in most, at least large enterprises, if you are a Scrum Master or a project manager, you won't be writing the user stories. There will be a BA, product owner who will be doing it. You'll be working with them. So that's why it's very important to have that clear view. But when you are on this platform, make sure that you are going through these questions. Don't ignore them. You should be very thorough. And if something comes in the interview, you should be able to understand why it is being asked, whether it's a trick question or something relevant to the job profile you have applied for. So basically, if you see, now this is a question which is a real interview question. And everything here is a keyword, definition of done, definition of ready, an IAM solution. Again, doesn't matter what site or app you build, you're always going to use IAM. So this is a very relevant question. And again, this is BDD driven. You need to be very thorough, whether the acceptance criteria is BDD driven or TDD driven, or what are the differences, those kind of things. And you'll be clear if you are using this platform. So I'm not going to cover each and everything, but point is that here, if I write something and then click submit, it will give me a sample response. Now, if I simply go put this file here, then you will see that it will give me a sample answer, which is an industry standard. And that's how the people who use it effectively, they use all these multiple type questions. And in fact, I have seen that a lot of time, though I was saying that if you're trying to switch from Scrum Master or Project Manager role to BA or vice versa, or a lot of test manager, testers, they try to switch to BA and Scrum Master roles. And they have really used this platform to exploit it, because now they have practiced all these questions where they can handle the complex advanced questions. And then on the top of that, they are also thorough with their fundamentals. So let's say you are coming from a testing background. Somebody is asking questions around TDD. Now you might be able to answer that, but if somebody asks you a question with the BDD, you won't have any clue. So that's why when you are using such tool, make sure that you are very thorough and you go through all the questions. Don't ignore anything. So if you get an objective type question and you think, come on, it's very basic, I already know this, maybe that might be the case with you. But still, you are here to practice and use these things multiple times. So for example, try to answer this question 10 times. Every time you can come back, compare. Maybe your response might be better than this sample. But the point of this whole exercise is to prepare. If you have done it 10 times, and there are so many questions, you will see there are, I think, more than 150 questions or 170 questions for BA and IT product owner. When you have done this multiple times, it doesn't matter what questions or what language or what terminology is used in an interview, you will be able to crack that. Okay? But like I said, if you have any specific question, if you have any specific concern, leave your comments or reach out to me through LinkedIn. I have left the link in the description. But don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay? Thank you.